Hello, and welcome back to the Empower Her podcast. There have honestly been so many times in my life where I wanted to delete everything, quit, move, start over, burn it all down. And I actually have uprooted my life before. When I graduated college, basically 3 weeks after I graduated, I packed 8 suitcases, yes, 8 suitcases, and moved halfway across the world. And obviously I had roots here in Budapest, like there was a reason I wanted to move, but I really, looking back now and through going through therapy, I realized that I was running away from a lot of things that were going on back then. And I didn't actually really start to understand what those things were until much later. And there was other times in my life where I wanted to uproot. In 2020, when the pandemic hit, I've talked about this many times. I went through a bad breakup, the pandemic hit, I was struggling at my job, I wasn't happy, and I did want to leave. I wanted to start over. I wanted to run from everything. I was looking at options of moving to another city and starting a job somewhere else. And, those were all real feelings that I was having. So, if you're someone that you've ever felt like you've wanted to blow up your life, relationship, your job, your routine, this episode is for you. I want to talk about why this happens and what it really means and why it's, first of all, okay that you feel this way, but also how we can get past this and how we can actually name it. So the first thing that we really need to do is sort of name the pattern. So this impulsive energy isn't random, right? It's not immaturity. It's not, it's nothing necessarily negative, but it's a signal to yourself and to your body that something needs deeper attention. Okay, so let's set an intention for this episode. This episode will help you really decode what this impulse means, understand where it comes from, and figure out really what it's trying to tell you without you actually burning your whole life to the ground. Okay, so let's first talk about what this energy is, right? Typically, the feeling you feel, at least what I felt, was restlessness, frustration, panicky, irritable, basically like you wanted to crawl out or escape your own skin, right? Like you don't want to be within yourself. And I see this so many times with my clients, right? They're in jobs, they're unhappy, they're burnt out, and they just want to leave immediately, quit, blow everything up. And it's a totally normal thing that I see, especially, being a career coach. So common signs of sort of wanting to burn everything down are wanting to quit your job immediately without having a backup, fantasizing about moving cities, ghosting everyone, not responding, deleting social media, changing your appearance drastically, which, psychologically can really mean that you're trying to hide or differentiate yourself. And basically this feeling that you're feeling often feels really urgent. And the thing is that it feels urgent and it feels intense, but it's usually not really about what it seems, right? This isn't about destruction. It isn't really about blowing it up. It's about you having unmet needs, you having misalignment in your life, and having the desire for agency and to take back control, but not knowing how to do that. So this feeling of wanting to blow everything up is because you feel like you're not in control. You feel like you're in misalignment. You have something missing, right? When I wanted to uproot my life, I was sad. I felt alone. I wasn't happy in my work, right? In 2020, I wasn't happy being by myself. I was just in a really, really bad, dysregulated state. And I thought that blowing up my life, completely changing, moving would cause those issues to go away, right? Just like when I completely moved halfway across the world after college, I realized that I, was a parentified child. I was dealing with the grief of my parents' divorce. Like there were so many things that I was dealing with that I didn't know I was dealing with until later, that made me want to uproot and completely change and move. And looking back, I was able to finally go to therapy and deal with those issues. But in the moment, I didn't know how to, and I didn't have the tools. But it wasn't about completely uprooting everything, but it was an unmet need that I was feeling. So This energy that we feel of wanting to uproot can come from a few different places. So let's kind of talk about what those different places are. The first is emotional suppression. So whether you've swallowed your needs, you've swallowed anger, grief for a long time, and then now you've come to a point where all of those emotions that you've suppressed, they're actually boiling up to the top, right? And spilling over. Because at the end of the day, there's only so much emotion that we can suppress. At some point, it's going to come out of us. Another place this energy can come from is misalignment. So living a life that you used to think fit you, but doesn't anymore, right? Having routines, being in a job, being around people, being in a certain relationship that no longer is aligned with what you believe, who you are, where you're going. And that can feel this and can bring this intense energy to change. Another place that this can come from is stagnation. So feeling like you've outgrown your current environment, but you either haven't admitted it to yourself or haven't been able to sort of move on. And again, this can be in a job, this can be with friends. I felt this with relationships, my friendships, of feeling like it's stagnant and it's actually not helping me grow, but I don't know how to remove myself from this situation. The next place this energy can come from is lack of autonomy. So feeling like you're constantly performing or meeting other people's expectations, not feeling like you have a decision about your life, not feeling like you can control what's happening next. That's that lack of autonomy. The next thing, and a very common one, is burnout. So feeling like you're depleted, you're desperate for relief, any kind of relief, right? Like if you're working in a job and you're completely burnt out, that's going to cause you to want to uproot everything because you don't see the end. You don't see how you can unburn out yourself, right? And then I would be remiss not to mention the neurodivergent layer here. So if you identify as neurodivergent, this energy can also come from a sensory overload, rejection, sensitivity, masking for too long, a lot of things that neurodivergent individuals experience on top of all these other things we've just discussed. So I think the first step here is after we've identified that, okay, you want to blow up your life or you want to have a major change, is understanding where it's coming from, what's the base issue, right? And based on these that I just mentioned, you can kind of get an idea of okay, what is it that you're missing or where is the issue, okay? And then more often than not, what I notice is that when I work with clients, we've identified this, it's not that they need a full 360 change. We just need to see and pinpoint where the issue is stemming from and then work on that one thing. So instead of blowing up your life, okay, what do we do? So let's talk about a multi-step process that you can do. Definitely write this down. I think this will be super helpful to kind of go through this process. You can do it at a later time, journal on it, but it would be super helpful to go through this process so you can kind of see, okay, what are the steps I can take instead of blowing up my life, okay? So the first step is to slow down, okay? Just slow down and recognize that this is an emotional flare and not a mandate. Recognize that you are feeling a certain sort of way, whatever those feelings are, identify those feelings and just slow down and really feel them. And step 2 is ask yourself, what is this urge trying to protect me from? This is where we're trying to understand what's the root cause, what's happening. And then going a step further on step 3 is identify the unmet need, right? What are you craving? Are you craving freedom, rest, recognition? Are you craving play, growth, connection? What is the unmet need that you're feeling, right? So many of my clients feel bad in their current jobs. They either feel burnt out, overworked, and I always tell them a new job isn't going to fix your problems, right? The burnout, the overworkedness, that will still translate if you don't change your habits and set better boundaries. So we have to understand what the root issue is and work on that at the current company so that in their next role, they can actually feel better, right? So if a client comes to me and they're super burnt out, let's say they feel like they're always on call, they feel like they never have time for themselves. I'm like, okay, First step is, how can we set better boundaries around work? Maybe it's, turning your phone off after a certain time or setting do not disturb on. Maybe it's setting certain hours when you respond to people outside of work if you absolutely have to. Maybe it's making sure you take your lunch break and certain breaks throughout the day. Like, what are those things that we can actually do to solve the issue now? And then those habits, those boundaries, you can take those into your next role and you can take those forward with you. So it's really about kind of identifying what is the core issue and working on how we can fix that currently where you are. Because again, you'll just take those issues, the burnout, anything that you're feeling, you'll just take it with you to the next place, even if you feel some temporary relief at first. Step 4 is to then give yourself a low stakes version of what you think you need. Okay, so this is where we make micro changes, right? So let's say you are super unhappy in your job, right? I just talked about some boundaries that you can set, but maybe you plan a weekend off grid, you take some time off, right? What if you're craving change, right? You're craving to do something different. I feel this often. Maybe rearrange your space, plan a trip, go hang out with someone that you don't usually hang out with, go take a class, do something that actually fills that need of needing change. Maybe you want to feel seen. Okay, then post one thing that you've been hiding on social media or one thing that you haven't been or felt confident posting. What if you don't have a work-life balance? Maybe then you're going to set boundaries with your screen time, on call hours, and take your whole lunch break, right? There are little boundaries that you can set so that you can start to feel and really get towards that unmet need and understand what it is and really start to meet that need. Step 5 is to rebuild your agency in small ways. So this is about getting back in the driver's seat without wrecking the whole car. Okay, so this is where we start with very small baby steps. This is where you start to take back your power, start to take back your agency. So think about your life holistically and think about those areas that you can actually take back your power, where you can say, you know what, I'm going to control this here. Whether it's saying no to an event, whether it's taking a 5-minute break after every meeting, whether it's not responding to emails after 8 p.m. What are those small baby steps that you can take to start taking back your agency and your control specifically? And then step 6 is know the difference between sabotage and strategy. Sometimes you do need to walk away. I am absolutely not telling you that you shouldn't walk away from a toxic job or if you're super burnt out, right? That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is we need to do it from a place of clarity and not from a place of chaos, right? You have to know the difference. Like sometimes it is about making a big change and moving and, packing up and doing all those things. But sometimes it is about just looking at what boundaries we can set and what small changes we can make. You have to recognize when it's the time to make that big change and when it's not. So how can we actually harness this energy in a healthy way? So what we want is, like, when you're feeling this way, let it feel transformation, but not destruction. The energy that you're feeling that you need change, that you want something different, or that something's misaligned, that's a sign from your body that says, hey, something isn't working and we need a change. It's a good thing that your body is telling you. It's a good thing. But instead of trying to uproot everything immediately, let's actually think about how we can channel this energy into change, right? The goal is to take aligned action always, not to take reactive action. So again, you don't have to ruin everything. You don't have to uproot everything to create something new. I think there's this, misconception that in order to create something new or to be new or to start over, we have to start from zero, which means burning everything down. But that's actually not the case. You can think of it like books in a chapter, right? You close one chapter, you start a new chapter. It's all part of the same book, but it's each individual chapter is going to be something new for you, right? So you can think of it that way. And again, you're allowed to grow gently. Things don't need to happen in 2 seconds every time. And you can totally imagine yourself starting fresh. I actually think that energy is really positive, but without changing everything in your current life, without going into this, energy of like, I want to burn everything down. So I want to give you some reflections that you can ask yourself the next time you feel like you want to quote unquote burn it all down. I want you to pause and ask yourself, what are you really trying to escape from? What version of me is trying to emerge? Because again, it's maybe not that you need to start over. Most likely it isn't, but you need to start listening to yourself. You need to start listening to what you need and what's going to work for you. And I just want to again validate this feeling. If you are feeling like you need a massive change, you want to burn everything down, it's normal. You're not broken. You're not crazy. It just means that there's something misaligned. Okay. So my reflection prompt that I want to leave you with is, where in my life am I feeling the most misaligned, and what is it telling me? Okay, I'm going to repeat that. Where in my life am I feeling the most misaligned, and what is that telling me? Okay, write this down, do a journal prompt, reflect on it. This will really help you to identify where the issue is coming from and any changes that can be made. Alrighty, I hope you all like this episode. Happy last week of September, and we're going into October this week. It's so crazy. I hope you all have an amazing week. If you love the episode, please give it a 5-star review. It really encourages me to keep doing more episodes for you all, and I'll catch you in the next episode.